All right, we got to, we're in the middle of a dehumidifier install, and we need to drain the condensate. So what we've done already for the condensate on this package unit is we have put in a small grate here that pipes out to a pop-up emitter. Now, the condensate's obviously not going to cause this pop-up to ever emit anything, but what we wanted the pop-up so we could clean it out if ever we need to. So you can see we're pumping condensate into there, and so what we're going to do is we're going to come through the brick right beside this package unit, and we're going to pipe our flexible braided vinyl hose. It's 3/8 inch ID. We're going to just bring it out beside the shroud on this package unit and let it drip right here where this existing condensate is dripping. So let's cover that back up, and then once we get everything buttoned up here, we'll come back through and put some landscape rock down over here. Now the design is intentional. We've got mulch out front, ignore that giant hole, but over here where all of our mechanical equipment is, we will do rock, and we won't have anything growing over here. That way when our HVAC technicians or our gas people or whoever needs to come service this equipment over here, when they come to do their work, they're not fighting a bunch of bushes and briars and stuff. So, and that's a temporary spot for my mower. I'm about to seal this deck that I made and then put some of that fake grass over top of it so it thinks it's in the grass. All right, so I've already looked inside the crawl space to make sure that we don't have any electrical or anything else that we're going to bust into when we go through here. So the wall is pretty clear on the inside of the crawl space. We just need to pick a location that's pretty convenient on the outside. Now it looks like we have kind of an existing penetration there, but I don't know that I want to use that. I've got since the inside diameter of my hose is 3/8 and it's a pretty beefy hose as far as the wall of the tubing, it's the outside diameter is greater than 1/2 inch. I know that because I used 1/2 inch cable clamps for it and they didn't close all the way. So I've got this 3/4 inch masonry bit here, and we're just going to pick a spot, probably one of these where you have an intersection of the mortar, because we don't really want to drill through the brick. We can remortar if we decide to remove this hose later, but it'd be hard to fill that brick in and get it to match. So we're just going to kind of pick a spot to come through with this hose. The only other thing really we have to worry about is if we go too high, then we go into the living area instead of the crawl space. If we go too low, then we can go into the dirt instead of the crawl space. So what we're thinking here is the living room in this house is actually sunken, so your floor level is a little bit lower than what you would expect. We can kind of see that if we come around here. On the front of the house, we've got a crawl space vent that will be sealed up, and it's right there at that dirt level. So we can kind of follow the brick around and see that if we go in some of the lowest brick that we have here, we should still be fine to go into the crawl space. And then the only other thing we have to consider is how we're going to actually route the flexible tubing when we come out. And there's a possibility I could attach it to this shroud here and come around and tie into this. So maybe we will go right beside this one. My concern here, if I go where that penetration already is that we're getting into a lot of the brick, and I think it's just going to be a lot easier for me if I go right here and just kind of chip the corners off of those bricks. So let's see how this goes. Make sure I'm in hammer mode here on my drill. Okay, so you can see there we went from just a regular drill to a hammer drill. We've got it on a fast speed. I think we're going to start with a slower speed, even though this is a high-speed bit. So let's just see how this goes. So I'll take a break here and look, and we are getting into the brick a little bit. You can kind of see, but that's going to be fine. I'm going to just pause the video here and get through this, and then we'll pick back up. All right, so we just punched through, and if you're wondering why I had such a long bit, it's because it took that much of it to get through. So we've got cinder block behind here and everything, so it looks like we got through. Now the next thing that we're going to have to do when we get into crawl space is we're going to have to figure out where in the crawl space is punched through. And I do have some pretty thick fiberglass batt insulation on the inside of the crawl space, so I could just pull that back and see, but I think what I'll do is maybe straighten out a wire coat hanger and punch it through there as far as I can, and that way I can kind of see which part of the insulation I need to pull back. So we're going to pause the video again, and then I think pick back up in the crawl space. Okay, so we're entering the crawl space, and anytime I'm doing work, I like to install permanent lighting if it's an area that I'm going to be accessing for maintenance or any other purpose later. So I've got these, they're not installed yet, but on this side I have installed them. You can see where the dehumidifier is over here behind that duct. And so the probably best way to run this condensate drain out of the pump is to go to the nearest wall and just go through there and go straight out, so you have the shortest distance of hose. But that is going to conflict with where I want all my mechanical equipment to be, and where I've already got a drain to get the water away from the house, which is all the way back on the other side. So it's kind of a dance between where the homeowner or maintenance people would like it versus what the most efficient thing is going to be to do, or the best performing thing. So let's just go ahead and crawl in here. And we can talk about the rest of the process as I get army crawl here. So the other thing that I have done is I have measured from the exterior of the wall to where I want the condensate drain to actually drain above that grate, and it was right at 5 feet. So when we get over here and hopefully we can find our hole, hopefully I actually was able to drill all the way through with that long drill bit, but when we find our hole, we'll need at least 5 feet of tubing to get out there. Now, we do have a little over a foot, I think, that we should add to compensate for the thickness of the wall. I assume we have some cinder block and whatnot. So let's look at this. Let's pull away this insulation. And the terrifying part is that I don't actually see a hole, so maybe I didn't get it all the way through. Let's see. Let's pull some more of this away. I'm gonna have to see if I can get a light to turn on. No light on this phone, so I'm gonna just poke around here and see if I can find the hole, and we'll pick back up on the video. Okay, it looks like I'm not gonna be finding a hole here. So what I'm gonna do is actually take a measurement. This is the return duct for the HVAC unit. I'm gonna go all the way to the other side of the brick because I can see the cross section of the brick and the cinder block here. It's about 14 inches. So I'm gonna go back out. This is the other downside to doing anything on the side opposite of the crawlspace access door. We're gonna go back out and measure that drill bit and see if it's gonna be long enough to get through 14 inches and kind of try again. I felt it go through a couple of different layers, so we're going to see if there's another layer that we can go through and see if we can achieve some kind of success today on this project. All right, so I think made a mistake because this drill bit all the way up to the chuck is 11.5 inches. I need a couple more inches here. Normally if it were just a hex shank, I have an extension I could use, but we're just going to make sure we get as far as this drill bit can go and then maybe get creative with some other techniques. So let's just make sure we've got all we can get on this one. Yeah, so it looks like I've kind of I've bottomed out on this one. And I did actually hit, I guess, the inside of that cinder block. So we're gonna see, I'm gonna see if I've got another masonry bit that will have a hex shank that I can use an extension, an impact rated extension on, and we'll kind of go from there. So that's the thing. I bought this drill bit today and I thought, you know, surely it's gonna reach, but that does not appear to be the case so far. So I think I could have paid about $40 more and gotten a 16-inch bit. So what we'll do, you say, okay, well, this is the size bit you need. So what's it going to do to use a different size bit? Well, really at this point, all I need is a marker on the inside of the crawl space for my, so I can drill from the inside out. Right now, if I drill from the inside out, I'm just guessing at where the hole needs to be, and it's not really a 50-50 situation where I might be wrong, I might be right. It's very small chance that I'm gonna get it right. So it doesn't look, I do have all these hex shanks here that I could use, but they're not masonry bits. So all that would do really is just ruin my drill bit if I tried to use it on this. So it's a 30-second. So what this means is we're gonna take another trip to Lowe's and see if we can find something that'll work for us. All right, so this long masonry bit did not reach as far as we needed it to. So what I've done is I just picked up this other kit. It's got some masonry bits in it. Now they're not as long, which is fine, but they are impact rated. I thought I saw, well, who knows? We'll see if they hold up. So they've got this extension, and really we just need 14 inches, and I'm hoping that gives us 14 inches. That should be plenty. Now the trick is that the chuck part of this has to fit through the hole, the existing 3/4 inch hole that we have, which thankfully it does. All right, so I'm just going to, really the only reason we needed these particular kinds of bits is they'll fit in my extension, right? So they don't really have to be impact rated. Let me just set you right down there for a second. So I'm going to swap these bits out, and we'll chuck this up in the drill, and we're going to find out if my extension here holds up with the hammer drill. So we'll just go kind of straight in here, try to keep it as straight as possible. All right, so I feel pretty good about that. So that's the ticket. So the only other thing to mention here is that I got this kit just because it was a kit. It was a little over 20 bucks. A single bit was gonna cost me $4. I don't know if the math comes out in my favor or not, but I love a good kit. So I'll have those for any other projects. Might save me a trip to the store. So let's just go ahead and see if we can get this wire all the way through here now. Yeah, just get it started. I'm gonna move my tools off the package unit here so they don't fall off. It can't fall if it's already down. All right, let's see. Straighten this wire out. Ish. Let's see if we can get it in there as straight as possible. Poke around. Now again, this wire is just so I can go in the crawl space and see where my hole is behind the insulation. I can more easily find it. Maybe this will poke through the insulation, but my wire is not straight enough to actually get all the way in there the way I need it. So try to straighten it out a little bit. And now the other thing to note is the hole I just drilled through that last piece of the cinder block is smaller than the rest of it. So that's probably the reason I can't get through there. But that's fine, because I bet I'll be able to see it once I get in the crawl space. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the smaller bit out and put the larger bit in. All right, so we got our larger bit back in, and then we will go around into the crawl space, finish drilling the inside of the hole out with our 3/4 inch bit, and then we should be able to poke our hose straight through there and be able to drain some condensate. So going back into crawl space here, I'm gonna just flip these lights back on, and we can see I've got my big drill bit back in my drill. We're gonna crawl. I think in my next house I'm gonna have a walk space, not a crawl space, because this is a little bit for the birds. All right. I just hope I can see that hole when I get over to the other side. I'll tell you what though, even if you don't end up mounting lights on the floor joists, they're really nice to just have in here. You don't even have to wire a circuit in for them or switch. You can just plug them into an extension cord and they'll be fine. So while I'm getting situated here, you can look and see part of the reason that we're doing this work to install the dehumidifiers. We've got standing water. I'm not sure how long it's been standing here, but also we've got some white mold growing in the crawl space. So it's kind of the why here. Now, I'd better be able to find a hole. What in the actual world? I swear. Okay, I found the hole. Now, remember when I was talking about this house having a sunken living room? But we drilled pretty low down to the ground, and that hole ended up being at the very top of the cinder block. It's about half an inch down. It's very low light, but right here where my finger is where that thing is. So we're just gonna grab the big boy bit and work this out. I'm gonna hope that it doesn't grab the insulation. All right. Now, I've got my tape measure. Remember we measured, we needed about 5 feet of this material outside, and then we now know about 14 inches of thickness in our wall. And so I'm gonna use this point here as a reference so I can have an easier time measuring. It is just shy of 2 feet to the wall from that point. So I'm going to take at 2 feet, I'm going to add the thickness of our wall. We'll call it 1.5 feet. So that's 3.5 feet. And then we need 5 feet beyond that. So 8.5 feet. I'm just going to go ahead and give us about 12 feet to work with, since I have plenty of material here. I don't want to have gone through all this work and then have to splice it. So we can always cut a little bit off. That's fine. So I'm just going to stretch it out here and measure out 12 feet roughly. All right, it's 4 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet. So I'm at 8 feet here. I'm going to reel it back in and go 4 more feet. There's 3, and then 4. All right, and then I'm just going to do a little extra because I really don't want to have to do anything else with this. I'm going to take these are PVC cutters. You can really just use anything, it doesn't matter. I just happen to have those with me. All right, now we're going to get in here and if I can avoid some of the standing water, we'll just feed this through. Probably won't be able to see because of my big gourd, but we're gonna really try to get this to go straight through there and come out the other side. I can see daylight out there, so that's a good sign. But where this tubing has been on the roll, it's really curved, so we're going to try to straighten it out a little bit. That's maybe a pro tip, is to go ahead and cut it and try to have it laying flat before you start trying to poke it through here. And it was just folding up in there, so I'm going to try to bend it some more. But the good news is I can see daylight through the hole, so at least I know I'm through at this point. So I'm going to see if I can just reach down. There's no way I can reach down into that cinder block, but we're just going to try to work with it. Try to get it through there. So if this doesn't work, I don't know really what I'm going to do. I guess maybe try to lay it straight and come back a different day. I've got a piece of dowel. This is 3/8 inch inside diameter, so I could put a 3/8 or smaller dowel inside it to try to hold it straight. I could really do that and then get it pushed through, and then take the dowel out on the other side. Let me go grab a piece of dowel and we'll try that. All right, as is the way things go, I could not find the piece of dowel that I had, but I did find a fish stick, a fiberglass rod made for fishing wires and such. So I ran that through there, and then I'm just going to run this up. So imagine this is how I don't know, when medical personnel intubate folks in the field and stuff, they run a guide wire down, and then they're able to put the tube down. So I guess that's how this works. They just don't have an electrical fish stick with them, so they use a guide wire. But I think that seems to have worked. And so let's go outside and check it out. If it did work, we can just pull that bad boy on through, and then I think we'll be mostly done on this side of the crawl space until it comes to maybe fixing up some of that insulation or sealing vents and whatnot. But that's actually, we'll break that into a separate project because we really need to get things to a stable point. And I like to say, a lot of things, especially if there's not just infinite cash flow and time to do the projects, every initiative is kind of iterative. And so right now the priority is to reduce the humidity in the crawl space and stop the mold growth, prevent new mold growth, and get rid of the standing water. And then once we do that by dehumidifying the space and sealing the vents up, we'll make sure we get our crawl space fan functional, so we can vent soil gases out, and then we can come back and add some foam board to our crawl space vents and actually really seal them up. So we can see over here that we were able to push our tube all the way out. My fish stick was hitting this condensate drain over here. Just kind of pull this. Looks like we had very much plenty, but I'm not going to cut it off just yet because we want to route this fairly nicely. I'm kind of torn. Okay, yeah, so I don't want to cut this off just yet because I want to route it nicely. It looks really like my best bet is going to be to fasten this up against this AC shroud, obviously in a neater fashion than that, because that's going to lead me straight to the drain that I have. But it's going to be a little bit more work to service the air conditioner if we ever need to take this shroud off and work with the return or supply lines here. But I think that's just one of those sacrifices we're going to have to make. We'll probably come straight off like that, and then just a couple of clamps, not go crazy with it, and then we'll just let her, I don't know, we'll route this how we can, probably underneath here, and probably just zip tie it to that drain, and we'll call it close. So one of the things that when we're looking at these drains, one of the things that I like to do, I don't know, it may or may not be a good thing, is these are somewhat adjustable, and a lot of times they don't glue these because you need to, if you need to service it and clean it out, then you need to be able to get it off like that. So they a lot of times won't glue them, and then you can take that off. I won't do that right now. I want that to stay on there. But anyway, what I like to do sometimes, we've got this P-trap here. I like to either put a 90 on the end of this, or just tilt it a little bit lower than level, and that way we don't get the condensate running back to the bottom of this P-trap on the outside of the pipe. And so I don't know what I'm going to do. I might actually get some kind of a fitting, or maybe I can strap it up here and strap it down here so it has kind of an angle on it, because I really don't want that running back toward the house. I recently built that up with dirt so that we wouldn't have an issue with the condensate going back. So we'll see what we do there. But as far as all this goes, at this point, I've got my drain ran all the way outside of my crawl space. So I'm going to go ahead and go back around, and we're going to turn the dehumidifier on and watch that bad boy start pumping water out. All right, back in the crawl. I'll tell you what, doing this a couple days in a row, or doing this a couple days in a row, or a week, or however long I've been working on this project, as I have gotten time, you really start to not look forward to coming into the crawl space. I mean, that first time you don't really know what you're getting into, and you're really kind of dreading it. But then it turns out I don't have the worst crawl space in the world, so just duck down under here. So it turned out to not be that bad, and but knowing the task that is ahead of you, and knowing you're going to have to solve some problems and stuff, it's kind of exciting. But also, when you're on a timeline and you really need to get it done, it's kind of a thing. So first, let's look at our setup here. We've got this dehumidifier. It shows me that it's off right now, obviously. I do have this plugged into a GFCI receptacle, and I almost decided not to do that because it can trip easily, and I don't want to just not have dehumidification. But I decided to go kind of on the safe side, do GFCI to start with, and then if I have problems with it tripping, I can always swap that out for a regular outlet. The switch beside it is the switch that goes to my crawlspace fan. It's going to be way down there on the other side, and I don't have that wired in yet. So that's going to stay off. And then on the side of my dehumidifier here, I was going to do some hard pipe and build a trap and a vent and all this stuff, and it was absolutely overkill and not needed, and probably not a good idea in the first place. But I was going to do it anyway because I had the material, and it would match my air handler upstairs. But turns out that I didn't have enough fall here with my condensate pump, so it wasn't going to work out. So I just used the flexible 3/4 inch tubing that came with the dehumidifier, and I'm going to return about 30 bucks worth of PVC. So here is a condensate pump. So the condensate will leave the dehumidifier, come down through this clear tube, and it actually goes into a tank. The red part is the tank, and then it's got a pump that pumps the water up through this flexible hose that we just ran to outside. And so there will be a little bit of water standing in this tank most of the time, and that's fine. Over here, some condensate pumps, some models come with an overflow shutoff valve. So what this is there's a float inside the condensate pump, which I will show you. Okay, so a float, and it is tied to a switch. So you can see it's pumping. And so when the water gets to a certain level, it'll start pumping. And then when it gets even higher than that, it'll still keep pumping, but it will flag this alarm if it gets too high. And that will turn off the dehumidifier. So we don't really want to run that pump when there's not water in it. So the proper way to test that is to pour water in it. So you can remove one of these plugs here. It's just a little plug. You can remove that and you can pour some water in there and test that the pump comes on. And then you can manually overfill it and test that the alarm light comes on, and that signals that it's cutting power here. What I did is I set this in a pan, and I have a secondary cutoff switch. So if for some reason this cutoff switch on the condensate pump fails, then this pan will fill up because I did plug the hole that comes in it, and then this switch will act as a secondary. If this pan gets full, that switch will cut the dehumidification. So there's how that is. We just wire those. I wired those in series into here. So here's where the two become in series, and then this is a leg off of one of the switches, and this is a leg off the other, and the other legs are just tied together there. So we'll toss that on there, if I can get it on there. Certainly don't want to break it. There we go. All right, so then comes to the controls on the dehumidifier. On this particular model, the first press of any button turns the screen on, and then once the screen is on, it actually starts controlling it. So the first thing that it's going to do when you turn it on is it's going to sample the air. It's going to run for about 3 minutes to sample the air. And then after that, it's going to start dehumidifying if it needs it. So we started off, it said it was 75% relative humidity, which obviously, well, I guess it's not obvious, but it's not in here right now. So if we turn that light back on, we can see we're already down to the 69% relative humidity, but that's not an accurate reading. It's going to sample. And then while the screen is on, if I go ahead and hit up and down buttons, it'll show me what the setting is. So it's like the set point on your thermostat. So I just set it to 55% relative humidity. It's currently, as far as it's sampled, it's down to 67% relative humidity. And we're just going to kind of go from there. So we'll see what it says it is finally. And then if it determines that we need dehumidification, it'll do that. And then our condensate will, or our humidity from the air will come down this drain tube, and then it'll pump it out the hose that we ran to the outside of the house. So there's a couple parts to this system, but it's not overly complicated as far as the install of it. And you know, they package all that up in the dehumidifier. So I will go ahead and turn the camera off here, and once it starts pumping out the side of the house, we'll give you a shot of that. The other thing I plan to do is I'm going to put a camera down here. I've got a security camera system, and I think what I'll do is I'll maybe mount it right up here, get a good shot of the dehumidifier and the condensate pump, so I can quickly see if there's any kind of issue with either one. And you know, it won't be a perfect solution, but it'll be a good quick check, and give me a little peace of mind. And then the other thing I've done is I've installed another outlet over here. It's a 20 amp GFCI, and it is, if one day I get this thing sealed up well enough and get the air clean enough, I'll also probably get cleaned up or replace the insulation on this ductwork. And if I get all that clean enough and get it dehumidified enough, I want to put a server rack down here. So I went ahead and ran another outlet over here. It's like I said, a 20 amp GFCI, and I have my lights coming off of that. So all this switch here for my lights, and the two outlets that the lights are plugged into, those are all GFCI protected. So it's just another situation where if the server rack, the equipment on the server rack, which I don't plan for there to be a lot, if it ends up tripping the GFCI just because of the load or the rush current or whatever, then I'll just swap that out with a regular outlet, and then I'll probably actually just install another outlet and have the server stuff being on not GFCI protected, and then have the lights still coming off of that outlet, which will be GFCI protected. And if that's the case, it'll just give me another place to plug stuff in. Okay, we have evidence here that our condensate pump has worked. Let's see if we can get that drip out a little more. So I am happy that it is going to work. So our dehumidifier will continue to run. And I know the condensate's pumping out, so what I'm going to do is just close these vents if I can. I don't want to close these vents until I'm sure that we have a dehumidifier running in there, because I don't want to trap the humidity inside the crawl space. So look at this one. I mean, this one's pretty much kind of stuck just from the dirt and mulch. So we'll have to for sure clean that out, clean the dirt and mulch from around it and get it closed from the outside. And then over here we can get this one closed. Look, there's some flies or moths or something trying to multiply in there. Okay, you want to be kind of gentle with these metal vents because they will bend very easily. So I just kind of handle them by the edges where they're more rigid, and I just kind of go down through, and each one I push on the edge to try to get it to close. And then this one here is supplying temporary power, but we can close it just a little bit. Oop, watch out, it's a very sharp piece of metal there. So we'll do that for now. We'll get the access panel put back on, and then I've got a little bit more work to do in here, just tidying up some of the wires and cabling and get those lights mounted over on the right side. But we'll close up the access panel and see if we can't get some of the water dried up out of the floor of the crawl space.